Standing here in Malcanson in Von Romane, and around and about, people are honking their horns, of their trucks and their cars, because harvest is, for a lot of people, winding down. Uh, and I wanted to say a few words about the vintage so far. It's been a very interesting year that has thrown pretty much every challenge that nature can throw at a wine grower. Beginning with obviously some warm weather that precipitated an early bud break, and then of course the vines were hit by frost, very hard frost. Unusual frost in that it frosted a lot of vineyards that don't normally get frosted, and some vineyards that normally get frosted were spared. Particularly impacted the Premier Cru and Grand Cru white of the Côte de Beaune, the Mâconnais, and Saint-Aubin. A lot of places essentially have very reduced yields from the get-go as a result of that. After that, very challenging weather around the time of floraison, so a lot of shatter, a lot of shot berries. So again, there's some people who lost more crop to shatter than they did to the frost. And then in the northern Côte de Nuit, especially northern Gevrey-Chambertin, there was also some hail early in the season. Then came disease pressure, a lot of mildew, both powdery and downy, attacking the canopies. You don't see too many traces of that right where I'm standing, but these little sort of brown marks on the leaves are left over from mildew, and some of it attacked the fruit. And then, we had some really rather nice weather in September, August, September, that has certainly helped an awful lot to get maturity going along nicely. But certainly not looking to be a vintage of advanced maturity of particularly ripe grapes. Very high levels of malic acid in a lot of musts that I've seen the analysis of. And really difficult to choose when to pick, because we've had rain, a reasonable amount of rain. There's botrytis in the vineyards in many places, so the fruit is fragile. The vines have been suffering. The vines are shutting down in some cases. So normally you'd think, well, we just wait it out and sit and wait, but it's not necessarily clear that the vines have all that much more to give in some cases. Now these are looking great. And still, there's still something to play for here. But some vineyards, you kick the vine and the grapes start falling off. So, what is one waiting for in terms of picking? And as a result, I think, between the earliest to start and the latest to start, I would say that this is one of the more compressed harvests we've seen in recent years. Last year, 2020, which is much more simple to choose a picking date in a sense, because it's just a matter of getting it at the perfect moment. It was ripening quickly, and you had to pick the perfect moment. This year, it's more a matter of making a compromise between, whether the vineyard is in a condition to continue ripening the grapes. Are the grapes healthy enough to not lose too much quality to disease in the meantime? And of course, when rain's in the picture, you can actually lose sugar. But people, in fact, I think, are looking for rain as a way to lose some of the acidity, because when you're seeing fruit with more than 4 grams per litre malic acid, you're looking at really rather tangy wines. So stylistically, as the first wines began to ferment, I've tasted a few musts. One begins to get some sort of a sense of what it might be like. It's certainly a high acid vintage, that's clear. Tannins are not too aggressive, but you want to be careful not to extract anything unpleasant. I think we're thinking of looking at something a bit along the lines of perhaps 2001 in the Côte de Nuit, or 1996, 2008, 2013 to some extent. These are definitely cooler style vintages. So it's going to be a huge contrast with the last couple of years. It's going to be the sort of vintage a lot of Burgundy lovers have been saying they're nostalgic for, and that the people who are fed up with the advanced maturity of so-called global warming era vintages are going to get a taste of wines that have none of those characteristics whatsoever. They're going to be wines that take a lot longer to come together in barrel because of that malic acidity. They're going to change radically with the malolactic fermentation, so they're going to be difficult to taste young from barrel and difficult to review, difficult to get a good read on. But I think they're going to be some very exciting wines, absolutely, and they're not going to be much volume of them, particularly when it comes to whites. You have to feel for producers who are cropping in Mâconnais and the Côte de Beaune at 15 hectolitres per hectare, and often trying to deal with problems of sorting out second crop from first generation fruit that survived the frost and things like that. So yeah, it's going to be interesting, and it's winding down now. But I think especially white grapes are a bit less advanced than red, so there's going to be some people picking for another couple of weeks, I think. And we're looking forward to tasting them from barrel a year from now and seeing how they're coming along.